So today's session is using one of my favorite data sets. It's the Titanic data. It's a great data set because it's got some lovely patterns in the data. And we're going to have a look at today some of the AI tools in Power BI. But it's all going to be beginner level, I promise. So let's firstly, a bit about me. I am active on Twitter. My handle is Laura_GB. I also have a blog called Hatful of Data. No prizes for guessing who my favorite author is. For those that haven't worked it out, it's Terry Pratchett. I'm an MVP, business applications, which means I cover Power BI, some Power Automate stuff, and also Power Apps as well, but usually with a heavy lean towards data. Okay, so feel free to reach out to me on any of those. I will be putting links out to the video when it comes out, and to some other resources to back this up as well, on both Twitter and on LinkedIn. My full name's Laura Graham Brown. If you search for that, you usually find me. So the agenda for creating every single report. And by the way, I apologize to anybody who is coming to one of my sessions for the second time, maybe. These next few slides are the same, okay, but they're an important message. So here are the 5 stages of creating a Power BI report, starting back from getting the data, and that quite often is the biggest challenge, but that I can't help you with today. Some transforming the data, reshaping it, making it tidy, making it look right, doing some modeling, and in today's example, we will do some transforming, we will do some modeling with relationships and putting some calculations in and how that works. But today we are going to be trying to concentrate mostly on the visualizations. So we're going to have a look at the ways we can use some of the AI tools that have been introduced into Power BI in the last year or so. And then finally, assuming we still have some time, because I always run out of time, we will do a quick look at publishing, but that's not the priority today. So you've got those steps, but something you need to be aware of is that if you put those into a pyramid of how much time they take, the bottom 3 there, get, transform, and model, are going to take you the longest time. If you work for a very large organization, best of luck with getting your data. That's, in my experience, the larger the organization, the tougher it is to get hold of data. But actually, transforming and modeling your data is important. Okay, so important that let's change them to be a different color. And you really do need to do them. Okay, so we've worked out some of our priorities there, and before we even start our report, kind of at the get data stage, you've got the why are we doing this? Why are we bothering with a report at all? So why do you need this report? What questions are answering is really important questions to ask. Okay, so in this example, we're going to go with 3 questions. So from the Titanic, which if you haven't read the story or seen the things, they crash. Lots of people die. Okay, so we're going to go positive. How many passengers survived? Simple question. Okay, and we're going to write a couple of measures to work that out. What was the biggest influencer? So what was the biggest factor of chances of survival? And what was the split in survival rate? So we're going to have a look. There's 2 visuals here. The second question is going to be the key influencers, and the third question is going to be called the decomposition tree. Okay, no, they're not particularly good names if you don't know what they mean, but I will show you what they mean. So we're going to take the data. Okay, it's a CSV file, and we're going to put it through Power Query and into Power BI. Okay, so that's our real simple. I've just realized I've forgotten to put on here an Excel file that should be up here, because there's also an Excel file coming in here as well. But this list of data is a standard CSV file that is available all over the place for the about 1,300 rows of data of the passengers. Okay, so, oh, forgot to point out, Power BI has changed its logo. That's why that changed its logo. It was one of the things that got announced at Ignite was new logos for the Power Platform. So that's the new one. I'm trying to work out how to change it to be something else, but I haven't worked it out yet. So let's move on to our demo. So I normally start with a totally brand new report. Today I'm not, because I'm trying to do more. So today I'm starting with some tabs already there. All I've done on the tabs is add some graphics and some titles, okay? Just because they take a time and you don't really need to see me do it 5, 6 times. So here we are in Power BI. I haven't got any data yet. So I'll give you a bit of a tour around the windows once we've got some data. So for our data sources, what I've got is on my blog, I've already published this page. So if you go to the front page of my blog, which is Hatful of Data, and I will put all the links that I've put in here. Here is Analyze Titanic Data with AI Visuals. So if I click onto there, there are bits missing from this blog. I have not finished this post, but I've deliberately published it so that the data is available straight away for you guys. So I've got 2 files here, okay? The bottom one is the passenger list. I possibly need to rename that, but hey, I'll sort it. And the top one is the Excel file. So well, let's go for this bottom one first. I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy the link address. And then switch back into Power BI. So that was a web address, okay? It doesn't matter. So when I go to get data up here, there is text and CSV, and there is also Excel. But what I've just copied is a web address. So you go for web. By the way, guys, I have got the questions window in my second screen. So if you have any questions along the way, please do ask. So I'm going to paste that into there, and I'm going to click OK. Now this isn't the first time I've used my blog as a data source, so it lets me straight through. If it's the first time you've used a site, it will ask you what authentication do you want to go for, and it's a public site, so therefore anonymous is fine. Here's our data. It's showing you all the columns, and it's showing you it's got data in it. It's based on the first 200 rows, so it's guessing. Okay, so there's some buttons down here on the right. Load will just bring it straight into Power BI. Well, I want to do some transforming on it. I want to do some tidying on it first. So I'm going to click Transform Data. And of course, it opens in the wrong window. Let me just bring that into the right window. So this is what sits behind Power BI. This is called Power Query. And this is where we do our transformations. Okay. So in here, my CSV file is opened. It's done nothing really apart from open it. Okay. You might get a change type thing up here, but apart from that, nothing else has happened. But in my data, the first row 1 here, is the column headings. So what we're going to do is on the transform ribbon, I'm going to go use first row as headers. Now, on some files, it works this out automatically, and on some files, it doesn't. Okay. So the next thing we're going to look at, okay, now I happen to have played with this data set lots and lots. So I know the things that I want to do, right? So I've got a column here that says whether they survived or not, a 1 or a 0. I'm going to change that in a moment. I also have an age column, but I don't want ages. I'm going to group those together. And I also have a fair column, okay, that I want to group. And I'm going to add together siblings and parent or child. So I'm just going to call that family members. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hide the columns we don't want. That's simple. Okay. So first one, let's deal with this survived column. So I'm going to highlight it, and I want a words version of it. Now, there's a number of ways I could do this, okay? So what I could do is I can right-click on the number 1, which means they survived, and replace values. And it puts in the 1 for you. And I'm going to change that to be survived. And then I'm going to right click on the 0 and replace values. And I'm going to put it died. Okay. Now what that's done is over here on the right hand side, you can see the applied steps. So we've got the source, which is where I opened the file. Then the next thing we did was we promoted our headers. And then we replaced those 1s to be survived and that 0 to be died. So there are the steps that we've done. Now, if I was building a report and we had lots of time, we've only got an hour, so I'm not going to do it to every record. But what I could do is on that replace value there, do a right click, and I could rename it. That is replaced 1 with survived. Okay, I can end up with queries in here that have over 50 steps. You need to name them, okay, in order for your own sanity. The other thing you can do just to show you that it exists is if I go to properties in here, I can put in a description, obviously longer than that. That's not particularly useful description, but it's to show you the way it works. And there you are, you get a little eye next to that cogwheel, and that is to show you that there's a comment. Okay, so that's that one done. The next one I want to do, okay, so I want to group the ages of people in 20-year blocks. That works quite well. And we're also going to do the same, pardon me, sorry, the same kind of idea with fair. And that's, oh, and we're going to add those two together to be family. So the age one, let's do that first. So on the age column, we're just going to group those. So we're going to go for add column, column from examples, and I'm going to go from selection. Okay. Oops, insert step. I wasn't on the last step when I did that, so I don't want to do that. I want to press cancel, move myself to the last step, and do that again. Okay, so what it does is it gives you a blank column. So I'm just going to call that age range, and then I'm going to put in examples. So 29, if I'm doing in groups of 20s, so 0 to 20, 20 to 40, this one is 20 to 40, okay? And when you press enter, column by examples means you can put in a value and it will guess the formula for you. And sure enough, it's guessed it. So there we are, that one there, 47 is 40 to 60. So that's brilliant. We'll go with that. Let's click OK. And I'm going to add these two columns together. So this is whether you've got any siblings or spouse with you, and this is whether you've got any parents or children with you and how many. So I highlight my two columns there. Now it's gonna complain, and it's not gonna let me do any sums with that, and that's because they aren't numbers. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do some number guessing. We're gonna do some types here. So I'm gonna say this one here should be a. So I can either do them individually like this. So say that's a whole number, and there you are. I get a change type step appearing here. But actually, it's pretty good at doing it itself. So I'm just going to undo that for a second. And I'm going to press Control A to pick, oh, let's click on it again. Control A to pick all the columns. And under transform, I am going to go detect data type. How do I get to query editor? Either you click the, so I'm just quickly going to look at the questions here. I missed the start. How do I get to the Power Query Editor? When you load the data, there's a transform button. If you didn't do that and you press the transform, let me just quickly switch back to Power BI. There is a transform data button here on the home ribbon. That'll get you to Power Query. Okay. The other question in here, possible to get a link to files being used. I'm just going to copy that into there. There we go. The link is in there. With regards to with regards to the lookup table, yes, that is very possible. You can either do it in Power Query with joins. I'm not doing one of those today, but you can do it, or you could do it. I will show you a VLOOKUP version of relationships. So there's a question, sorry, looking VLOOKUP for age range. Yes, you could. I would probably do it as a formula in, yeah, you could do it. It's not going to be a straightforward, simple relationship. You don't have the VLOOKUP range lookup in the same way. That's a really good question, though. I will come up with an answer for that one. That's a blog post all of its own. So yes, you can work out that way, but it's not the most easiest thing in the world. So wait a second, I've got to here. I did the change types. So I highlighted the columns, and if you look, both of these got numbers. So I'm going to stop there. My apologies, I jumped to questions and I probably shouldn't have. I'm going to highlight those two columns. Okay, I want to add them. So I'm going to add a column, and there's a standard button with mathematical symbols on it. Drop down there, and I'm going to say I want to add them. And there you are, it gets put at the end here, right? I am going to rename that column to be family members. So I just double clicked on it, and you could type in a new name, and that adds in a new step. I recommend you rename all your columns together. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go back into here, and I am going to rename one other column, which is this column that's the sex. I'm going to rename that to be gender with a capital, just so it looks slightly better in the reports later. Okay, so you go and rename them all at the same time. So that's most of my data done there. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to limit the number of columns. I don't need all these columns. So I am going to, on the home ribbon, pick choose columns. Okay. If you can avoid using remove columns, it will help you. So we're going to go for, we'll keep the class, whether they survived, their name. Well, that's probably not very relevant. I don't use their name, but I do use their gender, their age, and their ticket. I don't use their age. I am going to use the fare. I am going to use where they got on the boats, embarked, and the age range and how many family members they've got. Click OK. Now, the important part here to understand is the steps that have cogwheels, I can edit. Okay, so I can click onto there and it will let me come in. If it doesn't have a cogwheel, you have to quite often delete and redo. Last thing here in oh, by the way, thank you, Sue, for putting up the link as well. Last thing I'm going to do in here, okay, to be aware, no undo. Okay, I can't say that enough. Please, there is no undo in here. Okay, guys. I've done all my changes. I've checked everything. Make sure all of these have a thing up here. They don't have an ABC 1, 2, 3. That just makes it hard work later. So I think that's everything I've got, and I'm going to go to close and apply. And Power BI has hidden itself. It'll be there in a moment. There we go. And it's loading the data into the model. Okay. On the in the Power Query, it only loads 1,000 rows of data. Okay, it doesn't load them all. So here's my data down the right hand side. You can see the column names. They're listed alphabetically, just to confuse us all. If I go to, so on the left hand side, there's little icons here. So I can go to the data. And it's doing the, oh, there we go. Here comes the data. So we can see our data's come through. The sorting of the data isn't always the same, okay, as it is in other places. So sometimes it will be sorted weirdly, and you're thinking, surely some people have got family members. Yeah, they have. There's all sorts in there, but the way it's sorted into here, okay, but that doesn't matter. We can cope with that. But I've got, so where they embarked from, and class says 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't want that 1, 2, 3. I want first, second, third. And I want where they embarked to be actual places. So I'm just going to switch back to my blog. And the locations, I'm going to right click and copy link address. And back onto the home ribbon. Get data. It's web. And I'm going to paste in that address. Click OK. Now these are just 2 little tables in Excel. So I've got 2 little tables. I've got one called classes and one called locations. They're both pretty clean. I don't need to do any transformations to those. So I'm just going to click load. So now I've got 3 fields, tables over here on the right hand side. So I'm going to go back on to the left hand side. But this now is, yes, this is everything I'm showing you today is totally, you can download Power BI and use the Power BI free. It's only when you publish it and share it do you need to have a license. Okay. So here are my 3 tables. Okay. And this is where we're going to, and the names aren't good enough for it to have worked out what the relationships here are. So I'm going to put in some relationships. So in my data, my P class here is going to be used in the P class here to look up the class name. So I can do a relationship there. And so one class of passenger has many passengers. So there's a 1 and a many. Now in here, I have got where they embarked from. And in here, I have got a lock column. So let me just show you in the locations. I've got a lock column, S, C, and Q. And they give me a column there where it says city, which probably should say port. That would make more sense, but hey, I'm going to run out of time anyway, so I'm not going to change it. Embarked to lock. Now this is an example which I would tell my developers off for because the naming is bad, because lock doesn't mean anything. Okay, so it should say like port code or embarked so that it matches. Okay, but that works for me, right? So we've imported our data, we transformed our data, we've done our relationships. The next thing, okay, how many, so we're going to go with the first question. And how many passengers, right? So, and how many passengers survived? So in all, the best practice here is to write a little measure, okay? And this is for all of you that know Excel, This is very similar to Excel, this part. So I'm going to click on New Measure at the top here. And up comes a formula where it says measure equals. I'm just going to zoom in on that because one, I'm blind and we're presenting. So measure equals. Measure is the name of the measure. So we're going to go with, I'm just going to call this passengers. This is going to be account. Okay, so account. And this is going to be, we're going to take the column of the Titanic data and everybody had a ticket. So I'm going to count the ticket column. When it says counts the numbers in a column, by the way, that's it fibbing. It's not like Excel where you have to use count A. Count works just fine. And I'm going to press enter on there. Now, where your measures appear, if you look over here on the right hand side, I have got classes and the passengers has appeared in the classes. That's because I had that table selected. I can change which home table it's all going to go in. So it probably should be in the Titanic data. When you have large models, it is worth making sure your measures are where they should be. Okay, so I've got a measure called passengers. Let's show that. So let's go into our visuals here on the right hand side. There is a visual here with a 1, 2, 3 on it called card. If I click onto there and into that card, so when you've got a visual, you get this pane here that asks you what fields do you want, and a card only takes one. So I'm just going to click on the passengers. So I put a tick into there and it will put it into there, or I could have dragged it in. And there we are. We've got 1,310 passengers. Slightly concerned because I was expecting that to be 1,309. But hey, there's obviously something going on there. So, but the question was, how many passengers survived? So let's do a different measure for that. And I'm going to call this survivors. Okay. I'm gonna write this. I have realised there are questions. I'm gonna answer those in a second. I can't remember how to spell survivors. Survivors. That was kind of okay to me. So here we're going to use a function called calculate. Okay, and calculate will take another measure or another calculation and apply a filter to it. So we're going to go for, we'll count the number of passengers. Okay, so that's that. But put in a filter. So I want to put in a filter where the survived column equals the word survived. And it's not single quotes, it's double quotes. My apologies. There we go. And a close bracket to finish off the calculate. Okay, so this takes a measure filtered. Press return. And I've done it in the wrong table again. Never mind. I will tidy that up later. So we're going to go for a card. And I'm just going to put it over here. I am going to do a bit of layout in a second. Right? And we're going to put in we're going to put in our survivors there. And the nice thing here, okay, you can drop things in and put in filters and using the filters pane and all sorts of things. But this is really simple and easy, okay, because it's got the right names in there, because I've named my measures. Naming things will be your sanity. If you don't name them, you will have problems, okay? So name them something that somebody else could look after your report and they would know what it was for, okay? And keep them nice, clear. So P-class actually is an appalling name. That's why I've got a column called class, okay? So I've got nice, easy measures to tell me what they are. So now let's do a measure, which is going to be the number of survivors divided by the number of passengers shown as a percentage. So, new measure. Survival rate equals. Now, dividing is a very dangerous thing to do because if you try to divide by 0, you end up with an error. So in order to help on this, there is a function called divide. Okay, and it goes for numerator and denominator. Bizarre name. The numerator is the top bit, the denominator is the bottom bit. Okay, that's the only way I can work it out. So this is going to be the number of passengers. Nope, already got it wrong. It's the number of survivors, comma, divided by the number of passengers. And the alternate result is, well, what do you want put in there? Otherwise, I'm going to say 0 and press return. Now, if I just put that on a card for a second, it comes up with a number, but that's not viewing as a percentage. So if I go back and click on the name of the measure, you get the measure tools ribbon come up. And in here, we've got formatting really similar to Excel. So I can click on the percentage. And there we are. And I can choose how many decimal places and all of those things. Right, let's have a look at questions. What's the best practice? Replace values in a column or import them in a separate table and create a relationship. So going back to actually your earlier question, if it's going to be a fixed something, I would do replace or a conditional column maybe. If it's something that you know there are going to be additions later on and you want somebody else to look after, then I would create a relationship to answer your question, PG. Anonymous, so Microsoft Power BI Report Builder is for paginated reports, so we're not doing that today. I will ignore the fact that Emma works for Microsoft at the moment. Microsoft aren't very good at naming things. Report Builder is not what you want. What you want is Power BI Desktop. Okay, so when you look in Microsoft Store, which is where I recommend you get it from, if you're in Windows 10, you will see there is Power BI. That is the app to view reports. There's Power BI Report Builder, possibly. I don't know if it's in store yet, which is to make paginated reports. And then there's Power BI Desktop. That's what you want. Okay, I recommend you get it from Store because at the moment the Power BI team are doing an awesome job. We get monthly updates, and there is. I will tweet it out later. There is a fantastic resource that shows you all the updates that we are expecting in the next couple of months. A gentleman called Alex, who works for Microsoft, has produced a wonderful Power BI report of all the updates. And there are some really good ones coming. I'm quite excited about November's ones. So this page isn't very pretty, okay? So I want to put in, I am not a visuals person. I'm not a pretty layout person at all. So I have to cheat. And there is a wonderful gentleman called Chris Hamill who has done a blog. There's a link in my blog post to his post about backgrounds. So on this page, we're going to go for background and we're going to go to page background. I promise you, by the way, we are going to get to some AI things in a moment. I promise they're coming next. And I'm going to add an image. So that was click on the page, click on the format, page background, add an image. And there's a whole set in here. And this one is a Titanic 2-column. Actually, I'm going to cheat a little bit. Have I got one there that is a summary page? Titanic summary. It's got, oh, that's no, we'll go there. We will go for this one because that's laid out right. And by default, it's 100% transparent. That's not clever. So we're going to take that back to being not transparent. Okay. If your image is too big, you will need to change the fit to be to fit rather than to normal. Okay. But Chris explains all that, and then there you are. You can then spend a little bit of time laying things out to make them look nice, etc. Okay, so I'm just going to do a couple of visuals on here and a couple of slices, and then we will move straight on into our influencers and decompositions. So what I'm going to do is a really simple graphic, which is called a tree map. Oh, I also should put a title at the top there, but I am aware that I'm running out of time as always. And what I'm going to do into here is we're going to go for how many passengers have we got of each class. So this is a tree map and it's got the group. So the group is going to be the class from the classes table. So I'm going to drag that into group. And the values is going to be the passengers. Okay. And then let's do another visual. So this time I'm going to go for a pie chart. Now, lots of people are very rude about pie charts. I'm very rude about pie charts. But if you're only showing two things, okay. So I've got a blank. That's bizarre. If you're only showing two things, then you should be able to use a pie chart quite effectively. And let's just put number of passengers in as the value. And there we are. We've got a nice little pie chart showing male and female. So I could click on the second class. And what it will do is it'll highlight a section of my pie chart. So there we are, third class and first class. You can see how the split works. Okay, so this is how our visuals react to each other. So let's go for adding one more thing into here, just so you understand the concepts. I'm going to add in a slicer. Okay, and in that slicer, I am going to put the port or the look of the city. Okay, so there are three places. Oh, there is a blank. I'll sort that out in a second. So there were three cities that, or three ports that the Titanic called at. It started in Southampton, it went to Cherbourg, and then it went to Queenstown. So if I click on to Queenstown, you'll see that there were lots, so that's an island. So there were lots of third class passengers that got on there. And if you go to Cherbourg, you'll see that there are more first class passengers there. And an interesting fact here, look at the survival rate is 55% from Cherbourg. And if you go to Queenstown, it drops that down to 35. And Southampton is even lower at 33. So the French were better at this, or they were better at getting to those boats than we were, than the English were. So I'm just going to try and fix that blank issue. That blank means there's an empty row. I think that's where my 1310 comes there. I'm going to go very quickly, okay, back to transform the data. Just to check. Actually, no, I'm just going to prove that this is. I think I know what the problem is, but I'm just going to show you on my Titanic data that I have. If I drop down here, I have a blank. I have a completely blank row of data. Okay, I don't want that row at all. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the home ribbon, transform data. And here's my P class. It doesn't matter which column I pick, but pick one of them. It's not showing my null because it's an empty row because it's not in the first 1,000 rows. If I click load more, it'll load some more data to get me more things in here. And I'm just gonna turn off getting the null and click OK. And there you are, the filtered row step has been added. And I'm going to go close and apply. And just while that's running, nope, no more questions. Okay. I'm then going to move on to, so the filter now shows no rows, which that's good. Okay, so let's go back into here. Right, let's move on. Influencers. Okay, so the survival influencers. By the way, there's a text box that you could have added onto that first page to influencers. That's not how you spell influencers according to this, but hey, I'll work that out in a second. I really can't spell. It's not one of my skills. So we're going to bring in a visual here. Okay, there are some. If I go to the insert ribbon, you can see them here. Microsoft are very proud of their AI visuals, and they are lovely. So here are 4 of them. We're going to play with 3 of them today. So the key influences is the one we're going to go for. So if I click onto there, let's just resize it a moment. So what the key influences does is, according to what kind of thing you put into it, it will try and analyze what influences something to be a particular value. So I am going to go for, what do I want to say? Did they survive or not? So I'm going to put in survived into my analyzed. Okay, and at the top here it says what influences survived to be died. Well, let's be positive. Okay, so let's change that to survived. Right, and then you drop fields into the explain by. So I am going to put into there, I'm going to put in class. I am going to put in age range. And you can see that actually it is working it out already. So if you're first class, your likelihood of surviving goes up, it's twofold. Okay, if you are a child, 0 to 20, it goes up by 1.3. Okay, so first class kiddies, they've got a good chance. So, and then we're going to go for one of the other obvious ones to go for in there is to go for the gender. And I'm also going to go for city. So when you click on the line that's picking there, so if you're female, you have a really good chance compared to everybody else, really. Okay, and so it's showing you the differences, the chances are of the guys surviving compared to the women surviving. Okay, being first class doubles your chances. Okay, so this average here is the average of the dark blue lines compared to the light blue line, right? So that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is the top segments. And here it's showing you a number of segments in here. So I can go for segment 1. And there we are. If you are first class and female, 96% chance of survival, okay, on that Titanic journey. But you need to appreciate one thing here, is that the segment here is just dealing with it's just that segment of the whole population that fit being first class female. Okay, now if it just happened to be that there were only 3 of them, but they all survived, then it would come up as 100%, but it would be a really small number of data points. So the 11% of the data, you've got to work out whether that's a real factor in your data. And this one, even smaller. So it's not third, it's not first. I'm trying to work out why that is just not, why doesn't it just say it's second? And they're female. Okay, it goes down a bit, but it's still pretty good. Then the last segment they show there is don't come from Southampton and be third class female. Okay, so that's another sector. So this is showing you the influences that get you to your points, right? It's worth having an explore of your data just to show you the opposite of it, or not the opposite, but the other factors there, that if you do died, it goes and does the analysis again. So there we are, sure enough, if you're male, you're more likely to die, okay? And if you're third class, if they don't know how old you are, okay, appears to be a factor. That's obviously a factor that's rubbish because it doesn't make any difference. That's an invalid point. So you've got to work some of these out. But let's go have a look at the decomposition. Does it matter the order of explained by? No, it doesn't matter at all. You can drag these around, and it will run the analysis again, but it'll come back with exactly the same. So yes, it appears to recalculate it, but that's just because it thinks you've changed something. Okay, that was one of the questions from Remon. So let's move on to the decomposition tree. Right, the decomposition tree. We're going to bring in a decomposition tree of the top here. So the decomposition tree is a way of splitting out the data, splitting out a number. So this one, you've got an analyze here. Now in the analyze here, I'm going to put a calculation. I'm going to put the survival rate. Okay, so the survival rate is 38.2%. So then there's some explained by just the same way as there was in the key influences. So I am going to put into there, we're going to put into there similar kinds of things. So class, I'm not going to put city this time though. I'm going to put in age range, and I'm going to put in gender. Okay. So I can click on the plus, and there are a number of things in here. So let me just show you a really simple one here. I'm going to ignore the top two, which are the AI ones. But if I just go for a class, there you are. It shows you how the survival rate changes over the different classes. Okay. And they will stay there. And if I come over to here, let's put in some slicers. So I'm just going to put in a slicer. By the way, I strongly recommend making up some company backgrounds that work for your teams, because it will make life so much easier and your reports will look so much better. We've still got a blank city. Hey ho. If I come into here and I go to Cherbourg, you can see it changes the whole visual to be different. But that's not AI. That's just splitting it. And let's be honest, that's clever, but it's not something amazing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get rid of that for a sec, and I'm going to click into here, and I'm going to go for high value, okay? And the chances are it comes up with, age range, okay? So 80 to 100-year-olds, amazingly, all of them survived. I have a funny feeling there's only one passenger that fits that, by the way. And if I then click into here, and I go high value again, it then goes, okay, so class is the next part, and high value. And there we are. There was obviously an old gentleman who survived, amazingly. So if you click around your different ports, okay, the ones that have got little light bulbs next to them, it will calculate what the biggest split one is. So let's go to Cherbourg, and you'll see that gender is a real factor there, that 90% of the ladies from Cherbourg survived, okay? So you obviously need to be female and French. And we can look into Queenstown, and you see it swaps the columns around. In Queenstown from Ireland, you really needed to be in first class, because otherwise your rates are halved almost there. And into Southampton, age, ignoring that gentleman at the top, if I come down to the children, okay, and you can click on these, and it will show you how the split goes there. And you can click down the tree, okay. This is worth having. The decomposition tree is worth having a play with, and it's worth publishing and seeing how that works, because up the top here, your users can change some of these things if you don't go and with these ones, they can't change them, but when they're the normal ones, they can come in and muck about with them if you don't lock them. But it's worth a play. It's a really powerful one. It's a really powerful tool to go for. So if I go for looking at the time, looking at the time, we're not going to do. I'm not going to do the fair one. The fair is almost identical to this. Okay. It's just spitting where did all the fare come from. By the way, it came from the first class passengers. They paid a lot of money. I looked it up. The difference in fares, just to illustrate something here. I'm just going to show you the fares here. So this lady here, who survived, thankfully, paid £211 for a ticket, which it sounds just sounds like a really cheap thing to begin with, until you realise since 1912, when this was, the inflation since then is times it by 1,100. So she paid over £200,000 to go on the Titanic. That's a lot of money. So, survival by port. Okay. Right, I remember what we're doing here. So I just thought this isn't an AI feature, but it shows you how the things are split. Okay, so we're just going to go for a really simple map. And it's just to illustrate that actually how you can show some of the things we've just seen in those AI features. So I can bring into here. So you've got a location and all that, and the legend. Well, legend is going to be whether they survived or not. So that's the colours, latitude and longitude. So by latitude, I've got columns here called latitude and longitude. And this is a feature, otherwise known as a bug to the rest of us. It will go with the first latitude. Okay. What you need to do is drop that down. Say, don't summarize. Okay, because it tells you here, don't summarize. Yeah, well, I didn't. Software, you did that. And it's going to do the same to longitude. Okay. And you'll see here, you get some little dots, some little pie charts. Well, those pie charts are quite small. So let's have, there are more passengers coming from Southampton than from anywhere else. So let's put in the number of passengers in as the size. And there you are, you get little pie charts in here. Now, one thing I haven't touched at all, okay? I wonder why that's up there. Let's ignore that for a second. One thing I've hardly touched at all in here is formatting. There's lots of things in formatting. We could do a whole hour based on formatting. The size is what I'm looking for here. I'm just going to up that to be a bit bigger. So there we are. That shows you, okay, the survival rates of the different cities. Okay, dark purple is the survive. So more people survive from Cherbourg, percentage-wise. If I brought in a slicer into there, I could also bring in the gender. So you could actually see, if I go for guys, it's even more so. The ladies, okay, there's even more. I mean, look at that survival rate from Cherbourg. Okay, so this is lots of different ways to illustrate the same message. Okay, I don't recommend you try using them all, because obviously we're repeating ourselves here. Now we're getting there. Sorry, I keep having to. I'm keeping looking down to have a look to see if there's any questions. So to answer your question, Titanic staff aren't in here, and it was something I realised today, that the Titanic staff aren't mentioned in here. It would slew the data, because I am going to guess that the crew were not given priority. in any shape or form. And I'm also going to guess that the crew were possibly male dominated, but I don't know. So I have to admit, I realized that today, and it's something that I'm going to go and see if I can find the crew data. It's not an easy one to find at the moment, but if anybody comes across it, please do let me know. Right. Okay. This next feature, okay, you have to turn on in the latest version of Power BI. So if I go to File and I go to Options and Settings and I go to Options, this feature is still, I think, in preview. So if I go to Preview Features, okay, the one we're looking at here is the Smart Narrative Visual. So therefore, it's in preview at the moment. It will go into GA at some point, probably not too long, but it's so therefore, if it has some issues, and it does have a few minor ones in my case, in my examples, but you do need to turn it on. And when you turn it on, it might ask you to reboot Power BI. Hence, I turned it on first. Every month, by the way, this list gets new things added to it. Normally they drop the next version, probably sometime in the next week, maybe next week. So survival by age. We're going to put into here a line chart. So a line and column chart, okay? And the smart narrative will give you a text description of what it thinks is going on. So I am going to put in age range along the shared axis. I am then going to put the number of passengers in as the line values. Okay, right. The first time you do this, if you look, we've got a line going downwards because that's how Power BI works. But these numbers at the bottom here aren't in order. So these three dots here, I click into there, and there is a sort descending and sort ascending. So let's just change the sort. So we start with the lowest going towards the highest. That will just reverse the line. Okay. Then three dots again, and then I'm going to go on the sort by, and it'll give you the options. And I'm going to sort by age range rather than passengers. So there we are. For some reason, so we've got some people that don't have an age range. Okay, and so that doesn't make my chart look weird, I'm going to remove those. So I'm going to remove those by in the filter panel over here, where it says age range. I'm going to drop that arrow down, and I'm going to select all, and then unselect blank. And there we are. I get my age ranges, and there we are. We get our line. And sure enough, if you look there, I've only got one passenger in this age range. And that's why I had that 100%, because obviously that passenger survived. The column series I am going to put in as the survival rate. So there we are. We've got our combination chart showing you various things there. It's showing you the high that there was a high survival rate. Sorry, there's a high number of passengers, but a low survival rate for this age range. Children did quite well in surviving, and our one passenger at the end here slews the figures a bit. So let's go for looking at how we can describe that with our new smart narrative. If you right click on here, you can pick a chart to summarize. If you're trying to summarize a whole page, you can just click the smart narrative there or over here. They all have the same icon. So if I go to summarize, it'll add you creating your narrative. And there we go. It writes a narrative for you. Okay. And it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it gives you some really powerful little bits of text, and it makes people happy. I've shown this to a few managers, and they've been really, really happy with the concept. So I'm just trying to get rid of that scroll bar. Let's just make it taller. There you are, it's gone. Okay. So this, when I untick it, there you are. You can see the blue bits are the bits it's are the parts which it's calculating or guessing the names of. So passengers and survival rate are far enough diverge the most when 20 to 40, okay? And 100% has the highest survival rate. You might turn and go, I don't really care. That's not something that's not a paragraph I want. You can come in and you can edit this, okay? You can also let's just put in a slicer. So let's bring in a slicer and let's make that gender. And just because I feel I ought to have done this at least once to show you guys how it works, that slicer there, if I want it to be 2 buttons, I could go for formatting, general, and under orientation, let's go for horizontal. And there we are. Oh, they're not very pretty buttons against that dark grey. Oh, well, okay. That didn't work quite so well as I thought it was going to. So if I click on female, okay. If you look here, this third paragraph is the one that's changing. So 40 to 60 has the highest survival rate. Whereas if I go for people, for gentlemen, we get a slew because the 100% 80 to 100 has the highest survival rate. Okay, now that would change if I decided that this one person is causing an anomaly to my data. So I probably, if I was doing proper analysis, I would remove that one row of data because it's an anomaly and it's causing it to be slewed. It should be showing that actually children are doing pretty well out of this survival rate. Okay, so you can come into here. There's a paragraph there. It doesn't think it's relevant to our current selection of data, but that's what that little icon there is showing. But you can come in and you can turn around and go, do you know what? I'm going to add in some of my own text. Please see notes below or something like that. I can also add in calculations into there, etc. But I was trying to keep this as simple as possible. But you can edit, you could tweak that text so that it would work for you. Any more questions? Yeah, Sue, I totally agree. The ship's crew suffered the most. They probably weren't even. They probably would have had to fight to get into survival boats, which is sad. What happens if you add age range and 40%? Yes. If I put in and 40% of the ages are missing, yes. This chart is excluding those because I removed the blanks. So you're right. That we have to work out how we're going to cater for our missing ages. Okay. In the smart narrative, can the numbers be set in different color or bold to stand out? Really good question. I don't know. If I highlight that one there. Oh, look, you can. I can make it. There's no bright red. There's a bright red. That'll do. Oh no, that does the whole paragraph. Okay. So no, sadly, doesn't look like you can. The formatting stays for that paragraph. Can I make that bold, or does that make it makes the whole paragraph bold? So it looks like I can't do an individual part of that paragraph. Nice question though. It's a new feature. So actually that's a perfectly valid question to ask, and it's worth putting back to the team to say, can we have it so that we can format little parts of this text? They've changed so when you go into the text box at the top here, that also has a similar kind of formatting, but that one, I wonder if that will let me. Yeah, that will let me do parts of it, but it won't inside a smart narrative. It'd be interesting to see what the Power BI team say to that as a question. if you edit, so the question is, if you edit narrative, will it still update if data is edited, or if you make changes? So the bits that are underlined in blue will change, okay, but the bits that are not in blue will stay the same. Okay, so it will tweak the text to try and fit with it. So if I come into here, go on, let me edit it. And again, it just weirdly behaves with me. So if I come into wherever my cursor has gone now, if I come into there and I delete that word, oh, it's not going to let me. It's not going to let me edit those paragraphs, is it? You can come into here and type in some of your own, or you can do a thing called review, which show auto-generated ones. Sorry, you can come into here and it will show you all the different values that it's picked up. So V1 is let me add that in. So is the word passengers, okay, and that is the first one it calculated, which is the name of the measure. So there are ways you can work your way around. It's still a very new feature. I am still working my head around it as the things I can do with it. But these values and the reviewing allows you to show me the auto-generated ones. In here, working out what these are. Now, can I rename these ones? No, you can't. I don't think it's better rename them. So fields with the highest maximum value between survival rate and passengers. So it describes it. It tells you what it is. Sadly, I can't rename it, which is a shame. But you can go through these. It really has an issue there, doesn't it? You can go through these and work out what all the different ones are. So there is some other ones that are put into there. Oh, there's some edited ones, and this is still in its early stages. I think is going to change a little bit. My problem with it is that you can end up with this box covering the text, so you can't see what you're doing. But I think that is going to get fixed. Okay, I have gone over time as always. My apologies. Does anybody have any questions? I will be posting a copy of this particular PBIX. I will put up the starter versions of how I started and the final version, kind of like it is now, as two sources. Coming back to our presentation, Microsoft are really good at producing their documentation and things to go with, but there are supplements out there. GynaCube are two Microsoft people, but they're doing GynaCube in their spare time. The SQLBI guys, Alberto and Marco, otherwise I know as Italians because I think it suits them. They are both Italian, if that helps. They do some fantastic things in DAX and they do amazing stuff in there. I've got my own YouTube channel with my little Lego guys and my Hatful of Data blog. And we can't forget Microsoft. They have a fantastic resource and loads of lessons and things to go through. So I picked the most relevant one today, and here's a QR code for it. If you could head there and have a look, that would be great. I think I'm done, Emma.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you to everyone who has stayed with us through the session. As Laura mentioned, please do scan the QR code that's on the screen, or you can get the link as well that's on display. Laura, thank you so much for today's session. Super interesting, very different, but really great for us, and lots of great questions that have come through. As I mentioned, the session was recorded. It will be available by the end of the week on our YouTube channel, and I'll post that link in the meetup group. So if there's no more questions, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their evening or day, depending on where you're joining us from. And Laura, I hope we have you back again, delivering another session with us soon.
I think I'm going to do biscuits and tea. The next one. Very British topic.
Great idea. Love that. Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much again, everyone, and hopefully see you at the next reactor session.
I look forward to seeing you guys. Take care.